Hey everyone, so some of y'all were asking me about my gear selections and what I am currently using. Definitely been through a lot of different changes since the beginning. I'll show you my gear, but I'll also explain how you can build up to this point. So one of the changes recently is that I introduced this one. Got it a little while back, but with mana issues, I don't suggest using this early on. Let me bring up some gear. So yeah, early on with mana issues, you don't want to raise your spell that much. It definitely introduced a larger problem when it comes to your mana sustain. Um, so what you can do is you can run it with this shield, which won't raise levels, but it'll grant you around 400 to 500% additional damage. It's not flat damage, but it's percentage damage. So we can scale it with critical strikes, and it's pretty effective that way. And then this is my scepter. Got this very early on in the league. I think I paid like 100 exalt for this. For something like this right now, the market is trying to price in around 20 to 30 divines. Um, Kind of tough. I've been looking on the market for something similar, and there hasn't been much posted. Um, what you can do starting off is you can compensate for having less spirit on your scepter by using a unique armor. I always suggest this anyways because five link, not five link, but five socketed Morris Invictus is pretty expensive, around 20 divines. This will get the job done. The difference between these two is that you get about 400 to 500 more mana. Um, Definitely worth the upgrade, but not when you're starting off using the build. So something similar to this armor would probably cost you one, two, maybe three divines. And you would want to look for one with the mana regen implicit. Um, and for the gloves, for the helmet, for the boots, it's your choice. However, you want to use it to balance off your resistance. I chose to use mainly these three pieces to fill out my resistance versus the ring. Um, the reason why for so is that you can't roll mana regen on your other gear, those other three pieces. You can't roll faster casting. You can't roll 200 mana on those pieces. I do have a ingenuity belt. Definitely boosts it up. These three pieces are pretty expensive. I got this ring at a discount. Someone posted up for I think 15 divines, and I snagged this. And then this other one I have here, someone posted up for 10 divines. Something similar to what I've seen normally, the going price is around 20 divines for this one. And it's definitely not as good as this guy to the left. Obviously, for the mechanic to work on cast on minion death, you need to use this amulet. You can anoint anything that you want to anoint on this, but I use mental toughness. It's the best value that you can get for mana sustain. And yeah, it's just a balancing act between these three, but to cap out your resistance. but you do not need a breach ring starting off the build. Something like this ring or something like this ring would get the job done. Anything with cast speed and mana regeneration, cast speed helps with your ability to generate the raging spirits to do damage. So without cast speed, you're not going to be generating nearly enough raging spirits in order to kill bosses and whatnot. Secondary stats is whatever mana that you want to fill, but the most important that you want to look for is high mana, maximum mana, and then high mana regeneration, so that way you can sustain your damage and also the usage of the mana. I priced that 8 divines. I mean, I don't know how much these are actually priced. Every gear piece that you want to look for energy shield, as we're converting all of our energy shield into mana. Mana equals our health pool, but also how we're going to sustain our output on running 4 castle minion deaths. And if you want to take a look at the build tree, you can follow this build tree if you want. What I would suggest changing when you're starting off building the tree out is you don't need to invest on critical strike and critical strike damage. So you can omit these nodes, you can omit those nodes, you can omit these nodes and these nodes. Reason for so is that early on, I was also having mana issues. What I ended up doing is I had conservative casting anointed, and I spec'd into deep trance. I found out a little bit later on mental toughness. I wasn't too sure if it was Depa's video or we talked about it, or we went through some Reddit or something, but this is definitely a bit more value. We want to keep our mana topped off at all times, so the downside of the mana costing more when on low mana doesn't really apply, because we don't want to attack and create more spells when we're on low mana. No mana equals we're getting one shot because we only have 1500 health. So this can be replaced by this armor, along with stats that you want to look for is high-ish energy shield, and then also some spirit on this armor. This will give you enough to use 4 castle minion death along with blink. The total spirits you would need is 330 to allocate all 5 of those things, but if you're short is fine. It just means that you can drop one of these setup, which we'll be going over right now. Whatever makes the most sense for you to drop, you can. So I have 4 casts on minion deaths. 2 of them are utility based. The whole purpose of them existing in the build is to give you additional buffs. So mainly I automated Ice Wall. You can manually cast Ice Wall too. I just like a 1-button play style. It's just a little bit more fluid for me, and I'm lazy. But I linked that with Spell Cascade and Code Exposure. Reason for having exposure on this skill is because there is a cooldown, which means your castle minion is not going to be proccing this interaction with castle minion death that often. You are limited by how much you are casting by the cooldown. I do have Ingenuity on it to lower that cooldown for a bit. This is utility. This is so that you can single target the boss and shotgun your fireball. By when I mean also by shotgun, it's not for the damage of fireball itself, but so that way it has something to hit in order to generate your raging spirits. So if you shoot your fireball into open space, um, there's no raging spirits, right? But if you shoot it against a wall, fireball generates here. Fireball innately will split off and generate raging spirits along the way. So the reason for the firewall, the ice wall, is that you generate the artificial wall in order to do that in open space. If you're killing a boss near a wall, doesn't really matter. Ice wall doesn't really do much, but it's for the instances where if there is open space and your boss is in the middle of the open space, only the first hit of your fireball is gonna proc your raging spirits. Only the one of the three fireballs is gonna hit the target, which, as you can see, really diminishes the ability of your raging spirits dying enough to create this damage loop with cast on minion death. And yeah, I definitely don't recommend using a wand until you have at least 1500 mana regen, if not even more. Sometimes where you have a boss near a wall, or if your your ice wall doesn't break and you are generating a lot of raging spirits, your mana can dip and your mana can go down to 0 if you continuously spam fireball. So you do want a big enough mana regen pool, or big enough mana pool, but also big enough regen, so that way if those instances do happen, you can recover that missing mana in an adequate amount of time. Armor wise, you can also go with Amoris or Warriors Invictus. You can go with the 5% mana, maximum mana per socket, and then also you can go with the one with the souls, which gives you, I believe, 10 souls per ruin or soul core in it. I don't think that those are really that expensive, maybe like 2 to 3 divines, and that'll save you the trouble of looking for a rare one. I'm not too sure how much these cost nowadays either, so that's an additional option you can choose for using in the time being. And if you're rich, get this armor, like, doesn't really matter. Go for the best. You can even go for a rare base that has high ES. I think in order to beat this armor, it has to be around 850 ES, but you do lose out on the 50% and the elemental resistance, and needing to use the fire flower and not having the pressure of having resistance on your ring makes things and pricing a little bit cheaper to get rings. Like this ring cost me 10 divines. I think the person actually underpriced this, but this ring, I think originally they wanted 25 and I was able to get it for 18. With the resistant roll, it definitely increased the price quite a bit, and it creates a little bit more pressure on your other gearing if you don't have this on the armor. Just options and idea to think about when you're building it out. main focus is that you want on your rings, mana, regen, and mana. Main thing you want on your other gear pieces, which is the helmet, glove, and boots, you want a high ES roll along with mana rolls on them. So 150 on this one, 160 on this one, and 100 on this one. I kind of compromise on this because it wasn't that pricey for this boot, if I remember correctly. But what makes up for that low mana roll is that there's 30 intelligence on here and 2 resistance roll. That 30 intelligence equates to 60 additional mana. And with the amount of percentage mana we're stacking, it's around 60% additional. So you can do the math out on that. But in actuality, these boots are 230 energy shield because we're converting all that to mana. So it's a 230 mana boots. I've seen the higher rolls of energy shield on boots, but it doesn't seem like one of these must be a passive or prefix, because to have a double, it's a prefix. So if you're going to be rolling for high ES on boots, you're going to lose out on the mana, maximum mana. And for us, they mean the same thing. I do believe going with this variant versus the high energy shield pool, sorry, not pool, but base, it's more expensive. So go for this type where it is high ES and as well as having a decent mana, maximum mana roll on them. Alright. So we can do another map just to showcase the damage on it, so that way you don't have to look up the previous videos. And we'll do another breach for this. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about the build, you can leave it in the comments, and I'll try my best to answer them. I realized I went on a rant earlier. I forgot to go over the rest of my gem selections. So mainly two of my castle minion deaths are utility based. So Ice Wall for Frost Wall. Frost Wall is linked with Spell Cascade, Code Exposure, and Ingenuity. Reason why I put this over having it on my other setup is that there's 20% mana cost on this, and this is limited on how much you can cast because of the cooldown of Frost Wall. Second utility is going to be your Eye of Winter. This will allow you to inflict critical weakness. Having this on, all monster are pretty much always 10% more critical strike chance, or 10% increase on the base critical chance of your skills or attacks or whatever that does crit. I put this knockback on here. It does help with pushing bosses back or rears into a wall, so that way you don't have to rely on Frost Wall whenever the cooldown is up on that. Link that with Elemental Focus along with another Comet. You could do anything additional on the backside of here. I just chose to do Comet to have a little bit more DPS, but also to increase the proc rate or decrease the proc rate by having another skill with Eye of Winter. I believe it takes 3 dying SRS or Raging Spirits in order to proc Eye of Winter. Having the Comet along with Eye of Winter, it causes this to require, I believe, 13 or 15 SRS Raging Spirits dying in order to proc this. This is also to reduce our mana consumption. And the other utility for this Comet is we are Stormweaver base. We are going for lightning, not lightning, shock damage or shock ailment. We're able to shock twice, and the reason why we're able to shock is we have anointed, or not anointed, we have spec'd into Shaper of Storms. This allows all damage to contribute to your shock chance. Going back to this Comet, we linked it with Overcharge. Along with the jewels in my tree and this particular support gem, we are getting about 45% shock times 2. So we're actually doing 90% more damage with shocks. And this is linked with Concentrated and Cold Mastery. This could be anything else. I don't know if there's anything else, or haven't gotten the chance to find another support gem that will assist on or support Comet in doing more damage. We're kind of starved on support gems, seeing that we're having a lot of active spells. And then the main DPS gem or setup is going to be Comet, linked with Inspiration, linked with Spell Echo, linked with Considered Casting. This is not supposed to work. They have stated this during one of the patch a week or two ago, but it still does with triggered spells, so we're going to use it. And energy retention. Not too sure if this is working as well. If you look at the tooltip, from the tree we have, never mind. I do see here trigger spell respawn half of their cost. I was actually looking at the miscellaneous on Comet, and it's telling me 25, so I wasn't too sure if this gem was working properly or not, but it appears to be working as it is showing here. So yeah, use it. It will increase your damage by quite a bit. It's 35% along with, I believe, 25 on the tree. So you have a 60% chance of doing 50% more damage because you're only going to require 50% to fill up the remaining amount to trigger your castle minion death. But yeah, that was it. I didn't want to go over the gems and whatnot. People were asking, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. And if you have any questions or ideas that could be better than how I have it set up, leave it in the comment. I want to improve my build. It's hard thinking about this by yourself, and it's nice to bounce idea off of other people. And yeah, that's it. Have a good day.